Jai Shri Krishna. Jai Shri Chaitanya. All right. So, hello. I want to read a little bit from Nectar Devotion. But I'm asking myself a question here. Do I have to be an authority? Can't I just read this book? Do I have to be a teacher? Can't I just read this book with friends? For friends. If I have any friends. Do I have any friends? Maybe a few here and there, if I'm lucky. But as far as being an authority or a teacher, forget it. I just want to read this book. And this is the book. Nectar of Devotion. Summary study of the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu of Srila Rupa Goswami. Presented to us by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. Prabhupada. Krishna. I just want to read this book. I've read it a few times actually. So I want to read it again. But I'm not going to start from the beginning. The beginning of the book has a lot to do with regulated practice and deity worship, temples, a lot of mechanical stuff, which is necessary for controlling the mind, controlling the senses. It's necessary to practice. Sometimes it may appear mechanically. But I wanted to go a little bit further into the book in chapter 7, entitled Evidence Regarding Devotional Principles. By the way, the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, of which this is a summary study, is considered to be a literary incarnation of Srimati Radharani. How nice. So, chapter 7 starts out. In the 11th Canto of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Prabuddha tells Mahārāj Nimi, quote, "My dear king, please know for certain that in the material world there's no happiness. It is simply a mistake to think there is happiness here, because this place is full of nothing but material conditions. Any person who is seriously desirous of achieving real happiness must seek out a bona fide spiritual master and take shelter of him by initiation." This is a hotly contended issue in the Hare Krishna movement. Hotly contended. Who is the bona fide spiritual master? Prabhupada says you have to take shelter of one. So who's bona fide? Where do you find one? Now that Prabhupada has disappeared, it was easy when Prabhupada was physically present. Here he is, bona fide spiritual master. Then he disappears from the material vision, and this is all fighting. who's a spiritual master? How are we going to do this? Anyway, there's no question that Srila Prabhupada is a bona fide spiritual master. And anyone can hear from him in his books. So his shelter is there. But when he says, must take initiation from him, what does that mean? Well, in this line of disciplic succession, initiation means hearing. Simply by hearing, submissively, being initiated, right there. And then there are some formalities to engage in practical service to the movement. There's a fire and some mantras and a banana and some neck beads. Now you're in the army. There's different levels, different aspects, but simply by hearing. So by hearing from Srila Prabhupada in his books, and fortunately we have a lot of recorded lectures, there's initiation right there. It is valuable and actually very necessary to have someone that you can ask questions and they can answer your questions. For that, they have to be present, physically present, walking around. Someone you can approach and ask questions. The mind is a tricky fellow if simply try to ask. I have these to sit. Anyway, to kind of dream your questions. It's not recommended. It's recommended to have guidance. So there are guides. You can take guidance. But Prabhupada's going to explain who to take guidance from. Now, you can't actually ask Prabhupada a question and write him a letter or something like that now, which was possible then, because he's disappeared. So who do you ask your questions to? Who do you take guidance from? And if you want to do an official ceremony so that you can take part in a practical way within the movement, who do you take initiation from? Who puts your banana in the fire and who gives you your neck beads? So these are hotly contended issues. Personally, I wouldn't discourage anyone from whatever way makes sense to them so that they can stay fixed in Krishna consciousness. That's just me. I wouldn't take sides one against the other. I just wouldn't do it. Because it's a very personal thing. But we do have guidance here. So this is what Prabhupada says. The qualification of, actually Rupa Goswami says, the qualification of a spiritual master is he must have realized the conclusion of the scriptures by deliberation and arguments, and thus be able to convince others of these conclusions. Such great personalities who have taken shelter of the Supreme Godhead, leaving aside all material considerations, are understood to be bona fide spiritual masters. Everyone should try to find such a bona fide spiritual master in order to fulfill his mission of life, which is to transfer himself to the plane of spiritual bliss. You have to try to find someone like that. Hare Krishna. It's not me. I'm just reading the book. But if the desire is there and pure, a strong desire, then actually Krishna makes the arrangements. He sends someone, come into contact with someone who can actually help. Like I say, I'm just reading the book. And this is what I'm seeing. Somebody else reads this, they're probably going to see, well, they might see something else. Hare Krishna. Next paragraph. The purport is that one should not accept as a spiritual master someone who is fool number one, who has no direction according to scriptural injunctions. So they're making it up as they go. Whose character is doubtful. Oh boy, they're doing all kinds of stuff. Smoking, sex things, doing all kinds of stuff. Who does not follow the principles of devotional service. So the principles of devotional service, that's a little different from the regulative principles. The regulative principles are the regulative principles of human life. Well, that's my understanding. No meat eating, no intoxication, no illicit sex, and no gambling. Those are regulative principles for civilized human life. But the principles of devotional service are hearing, chanting, remembering, worshiping, praying, offering everything one has, making friends with, things like that. That's my understanding. Something like that. So don't accept someone who doesn't do those things or who has not conquered the influence of the 6 sense-gratifying senses. Agents. These 6 agents of sense gratification are, and this is described in Upadeshamrita, Nectar of Instruction, first verse, qualifications of a spiritual master. The 6 agents are the tongue, the genitals, the belly, anger, mind, and words. Like I say, I'm just reading the book. Anyone who has practiced controlling these 6 is permitted to make disciples all over the world. It's interesting, the sentence here said, anyone who has practiced controlling. It doesn't say perfected controlling. It says anyone who's practiced these things, at least practicing. And they're of good character. They don't lie, steal, cheat, things like that. Good character. And they take guidance from the scriptures. Now, such a person who has practiced controlling is permitted to make disciples all over the world. To accept such a spiritual master is a crucial point for advancement in spiritual life. One who is fortunate enough to come under the shelter of a bona fide spiritual master is sure to traverse the path of spiritual salvation without any doubt. So, at least know what we're looking for, right? It's described here. Hare Krishna. So there's a little bit more here about spiritual master. Another little section. To accept initiation from the spiritual master and receive instructions from him. Sage Prabuddha continued to speak to the king as follows. My dear king, a disciple has to accept the spiritual master not only as spiritual master, but also as representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the Supersoul. In other words, the disciple should accept the spiritual master as God, because he is the external manifestation of Krishna. This is confirmed in every scripture, and a disciple should accept the spiritual master as such. One should learn Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam seriously and with all respect and veneration for the spiritual master. Hearing and speaking Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is the religious process which elevates one to the platform of serving and loving the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Hearing and speaking Bhagavatam is the process. The attitude of the disciple should always be to satisfy the bona fide spiritual master. Then it will be very easy for him to understand spiritual knowledge. This is confirmed in the Vedas, and it will be further explained by Rupa Goswami that for a person who has unflinching faith in God and the spiritual master, everything becomes revealed very easily. And one more little section on this. To serve the spiritual master with faith and confidence. Regarding accepting initiation from the spiritual master, in the 11th Canto of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, 17th chapter, 22nd verse, it is stated by Lord Krishna, quote, My dear Uddhava, the spiritual master must be accepted not only as my representative, but as my very self. He must never be considered on the same level with an ordinary human being. One should never be envious of the spiritual master, as one may be envious of an ordinary man. The spiritual master should always be seen as the representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and by serving the spiritual master, one is able to serve all the demigods. Jai Srila Prabhupada. These are really good books. You can never hear this enough. You can never hear it enough. All right. Hopefully I'll be able to continue on and not get swept away by all these distractions. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Srila Prabhupada, Jai Shri Krishna, Jai Srimati Radharani in our book form. Hare Krishna.